Alrighty, guys, welcome to Confusing Bits. I'm Corey, and today we're going to talk about the Dilemma of a Ghost and Anowa by Aidoo. Aidoo? I don't know. Yeah, okay. Long story short, these are like short plays. They are very African centric, and the culture is very foreign. So to me, it was very hard to connect with. So I think if you're wanting something really off the beaten path, I think this is probably a good one. But I would put this in a challenging read category. Maybe somebody else has a different opinion of that. That was my initial read here. If you want to get more into it, stick around. As you can see here, we just a reminder, this is the queue. This is the stuff that I got to review today. This is what I'm reading. This is my technical reading. And yeah, there we go. So both of these are two. This is a tiny little book, right? And it took me months to get through this because I should have learned my lesson with Tale of Two Cities to just quit while I was ahead. But it was so short. It's just like, you gonna give up, Corey? you really gonna give up? But we made it through. And they're cute kind of little stories, but again, as I mentioned here, it's really hard to get into. Let's do some blurbs first before we get into it first. Okay, Anowa has a gift for the sparse, economical language of sadness and despair, and for the gaiety, rollicking boisterousness, and acidic wit of comedy, satire, irony, and parody. I don't know what that. That's African literature today. Dilemma of a Ghost. When Aidoo returns to Ghana from his studies in North America, he brings with him a sophisticated black American wife, but their hopes of a happy marriage and combining the sweetness and lovely things of Africa and America are soon shown to have built on an unstable foundation. And then Anowa, based on an old Ghanaian legend, Anowa is the story of a young woman who decides, against her parents' wishes, to marry the man she loves. After many trials and tribulations, the couple amass a fortune, but Anowa realizes that something somewhere is wrong. These two witty and perspective social dramas are sympathetic and honest explorations of the conflicts between the individualism of westernized culture and social traditions of Africa. Both plays have been performed to audience throughout the world and reinforces Aidoo's position as one of the leading creative forces of Africa today. I'm going to read a blurb of we'll just call her Ama. Apparently her name is also Christina Aidoo. I am sure I am butchering that name, but we will just, because there's no pronunciation guide, we will just continue to barrel on. So Ama is a Ghanaian author, poet, playwright, and academic. She was the Minister of Education under the Jerry Rawlings administration. In 2000, she established the Massim Foundation to promote the support the work of African women writers. So, about these two books. Dilemma of a Ghost is 1965, and Anowa is 1970 for context. Alrighty, so as I mentioned earlier, these are two plays. So, first and foremost, I don't know if I just don't like plays. There's a voice that I guess you would call it a voice to the way that plays are written, that I find so off-putting. It's really hard for me to connect with the characters because of the way that they're voiced. It's very clear. There's a stage voice, right? I don't know if you know what I mean, but when I was reading the book, it was really distracting. So first you had the voice that was really distracting. Let's the too long, didn't read was accurate. I struggled with this book because the voice was so odd and off-putting that I had a hard time really getting into the character. And it's very clear every sentence that you read that you're reading a play. You don't really get it. So I'm sure they're great plays. I haven't seen them. I'm sure they're great plays, but just reading the plays is really hard. I had the hard time, the same thing with Shakespeare. Not that I was a huge Shakespeare fan, but I think every time I've read a play, I find it off-putting more than anything. Like, because that's not the format they're meant to be consumed, right? So I'm always a little bit perturbed whenever I see that. So the reason why I have this book is this is one of the final few. Do I have another? Yeah, I've got one more. One of the final few books that I had as part of my outstanding English composition books that I never actually read in college. I just bullshitted my way through. So we're almost done with them, and so that's why this is here. I'm forcing myself to finally see what these were all about, and again, I'm seeing more hits than seeing more misses than hits, with these English composition thing. But I don't know why these keep getting recommended. Plays getting recommended for English literature because that's not the format that plays are meant to be consumed. They're not literature. They're performative. To me, that's just my opinion. Anyway, so anyway, I'm reading this, and it's got that weird stage voice, the way that they say things on stage and stuff, and that's really distracting. Me drinking a sip of coffee is distracting. Another thing is the culture is... they're talking about things and talking about things in ways that are completely foreign to me. I have no understanding of African culture or traditions or anything like that. So I'm reading this, and I'm sure the way the characters are behaving, the sensibilities that they're expressing are things that are familiar in African culture or maybe even Black American culture, but I have no idea about. They're talking about the way they keep talking about the way that the especially I think in both plays they were talking about the way the women weren't having babies like right away or something like that, as if that was like almost heretical, if we put it that way. And I just didn't have that concept. It was so odd. Every time I would read these sentiments, it seemed like every other sentence, or at least every page, it was coming across some cultural concept that I just didn't have the context to place it within the play. So you had the odd phrasing and the odd cultural context made it for a really challenging read, because it's like reading gobbledygook, I'm like, what? I'm sure these characters are behaving rationally if I understood the concept, but without that without that context, the characters seem random, and odd. So they got the odd phrasing in the book, and then their behavior seems odd even for a play. So it's just I don't know. So the first book is a young couple. They come to Africa, and it's a young man and his African man, and then an African American, Black American. I don't like use the, because she didn't come from Africa. She came, so that's why I said Black instead. So she's a Black American, not an African American. She's never been to Africa before. and she's fully American, and she comes over here to Africa with her husband after college. And so she's very foreign to, she doesn't understand. So I kind of like sympathized with her a little bit on that book in that particular play, because I was like, yeah, I don't understand any of this lady. We're both on the same page as that regard, and so that was the basic conflict, is that she basically doesn't understand the cultural norms of Africa and the expectations and everything, and she doesn't understand it, and she doesn't want to submit to it because she's very independent, because she's American. So so she's always behaving somewhat irrational by standards of the African community, and then whatever hijinks ensue. Or tragedy ensues. So that's basically the synopsis, as far as I could gather from the book. I mean, from the play. And then Anowa is a young couple or whatever, and they have a kind of a young, headstrong lady, and she's being encouraged by her mother to settle down with whoever she thinks the mother thinks that she should marry. It's just her time to get married or whatever, and she finally gets forced. I think it was she finally got kind of forced into getting married or whatever, but she married the guy that she liked. She didn't marry the guy that she basically married the pretty boy in town, the rich pretty boy in town, instead of the guy that her mother wanted. There was a rift that was created in her family, so she got estranged from her family, and so the last half of the play is just her and her husband. And her husband basically takes up the slave trade, or starts using slaves, and creates up a big vast fortune, and they become extremely wealthy. And the wife doesn't approve of slavery, and apparently it's a really heretical thought to the husband, so they're constantly bickering about whether they should have slaves or not. Along with whether or not, that was another thing. Here's the cultural context thing. She keeps saying that he should just take up another wife, and he's like, I don't want another wife, and it's just, I don't understand if that's like a real thing, or if she was playing with him, or I kind of got the sense that there was some kind of context there that I was missing that would have made that exchange, because they kept bringing it up over and over and over again, like I think probably 3 or 4 times in the book. Do you want me to go find you some wives that'll make you happy or whatever? And that was the wife saying that, and I'm like, it's just foreign, right? And again, the another very similar thing, the guy seems mostly sane. The protagonist in both is really the woman, and in both of them, the women kind of behave irrationally. So that's also another thing that kind of threw me for a loop. I'm like, am I supposed to understand these characters? Are they supposed to be tragic? It was just weird. It's like almost everybody was kind of like a caricature. And again, I'm pretty sure it's just because of the weird voicing and the lack of context. The characters didn't really come alive for me. So it was a challenging read. I would not read it again. I would not recommend anybody else read this unless you want a challenging read, or you want to learn more about, unless you have more context about African culture. Although African American culture probably would help. Maybe this book makes a little bit more sense, but anyway, I don't think it was written bad. I want to be clear. I don't think this was badly written. I just don't think I was the right person to read this book, and that's what it comes down to. So anyway, Yeah, I have rambled on long enough. It's 15 minutes. We're done. All right, guys. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.